Gumption, defined as initiative, aggressiveness, resourcefulness, courage, spunk, guts, common sense, and shrewdness. Welcome to the podcast. This is Stories of Gumption with your host, Ryan Lee. All right, welcome everybody. Here we are, episode 10. We made it to double digits. Believe it or not, we're still hanging on. People are listening. People are enjoying. Lots of positive feedback so far. Don't forget to subscribe and maybe leave a review if you're interested. But appreciate it for all those who have stuck around for the first 9 episodes. Here we are at number 10, the Stories of Gumption podcast. Conversations with entrepreneurs, creative thinkers, and who I think are just really, really impressive people. Let's talk about our 2 sponsors quickly. The first one, Open Gate Farmstead. As you've heard before, they're a stone's throw away from the mighty Ausable River. Open Gate Farmstead is a first-generation farm specializing in free-range poultry, pasture-raised pork, and seasonal produce. The farm is run on a simple principle. Happy animals make the healthiest and tastiest product. Isn't that good?
That is good. I wonder who wrote that.
Matt Craig.
I have assumed so. Yeah, he's quite funny.
Yeah, Matt Craig. For those of you who don't know him, he's a mortgage lender in town. Does a really good job. He did a great job for my wife and I, but he is also, him and his wife own Open Gate Farmstead. They're a proud sponsor of this podcast, and they are offering $1 off your first order of eggs if you tell them that you learned about them from the Gumption podcast. So reach out to them on YouTube or Facebook, Instagram. Check them out. Our second sponsor, I'm very, very pleased to announce, is Kavanaugh Realty. Galen Trombley's the man. He's definitely the man. He did a phenomenal job for Lauren and I when we bought our house in 2016. Stayed up late the night we wanted to make our offer. And because we stayed up late, he was actually in Florida and on vacation. He still worked with us, and we put in an offer, beat out another offer the next morning, and here we are sitting in our house, the Gumption studio. So big kudos to Kavanaugh Realty, a local independent real estate company helping their neighbors buy and sell their homes. Check them out on the web, social media, #Local Matters.
I actually have heard so many good things about Galen and Kavanaugh. And when I was looking, a friend of mine suggested that I go see him, and he was like so easygoing and like, I'm not going to force you to buy anything that's out of your range. He was like a no pressure guy. It was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good sponsors you got there.
Awesome. So you heard there's a voice on the podcast, everybody. The 10th guest of the Stories of Gumption podcast is a good friend of mine, a fellow Rotarian. I would say she's a serial volunteer. I think highly respected, a workhorse in everything she does, and currently the community relations coordinator at Meadowbrook.
Woo-hoo!
Rocking it.
Yeah.
Welcome to the podcast, Sandra Geddes.
Thank you so much. I am so happy to be here. I will admit, weirdly enough, I rarely get nervous, but I'm a little nervous.
That's okay.
I am afraid I'm going to say something that I shouldn't say.
That's okay.
Okay.
We'll edit it out.
Okay, good.
Or maybe we won't.
Maybe we won't.
We'll
Surprise. We'll see.
You'll have to wait until the end and see what happens.
Okay.
But we were talking before the podcast, and I can't help but start things off because I think gumption comes in many forms. But for me, sometimes I struggle to have the gumption to go running. My wife totally crushes it. She's an amazing runner. She's Superwoman. But we were talking, and you love running.
I love running. I am not a religious person at all, but running is my church. I solve all of my problems every single morning. I run like 5 to 7 miles every single day, and I couldn't do my work day unless I had that done because I don't know if you know this. I'm a little high energy. I kind of like to jump around. I have restless leg syndrome. Have you ever heard of restless leg syndrome?
I haven't, but
What?
I would assume
How would
you.
Oh, it's crazy. So RLS, as it's commonly known, is like where you want to cut your knees off because you can't sit still. So if I don't run, when I want to sit down and watch Parks and Rec reruns at night, it can't be happening because my knees literally will like just make me insane. So running helps me with that, but it also is just a way for me to have stress relief, and I love it. And we have so many wonderful trails to run in Plattsburgh.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's gorgeous. I love it, but I don't do marathons like your lovely wife. That's amazing, but I think that it's a really great way for stress relief, and it's not for everyone, but I did tell you before that right after I sadly I've been through a divorce, but after I got divorced, I had no friends. So in my moment of genius, I decided I was going to start a women's running club, which meets on Wednesdays, and it's gone a little bad this winter. We didn't get very many runners, but 3 or 4 of my very best friends I met through my run club, and it's got really wonderful. And we do all different levels, like people come in. But one of my favorite stories about it is actually my friend Amy, who she started the run club, and she was slower. She was like a 10 or 11-minute mile. And she kept coming. I don't think she missed one. And last year we ran the Plattsburgh half marathon together.
Oh,
and
wow.
we did an 8:45-minute mile, the whole as our average. And it was the most wonderful thing. I felt so proud. And I have my other friends that do the same thing. I don't want to not mention them, but my other friend Kirsten, who I met at Run Club, she is running the marathon in Burlington at the end of May. And so super proud of her. She ran 18 miles. She parks at my house in the city so she can run the trails around, and she'll park at my house and she'll run 18 miles, come back, and it's amazing. I'm so proud of her.
That's crazy. Yeah, and I mean, I remember from training with my wife last year for the marathon, because I was hanging in there.
Yep.
You get to a point where you actually have to like refuel yourself when you're
do.
running that many miles.
Yeah. There's a thing that actually exists. So my dad was a really big runner, and he ran a lot of marathons. And he always told me about hitting the wall.
Yeah.
And has your wife said that that's happened to her?
Yeah. Yeah. So funny story. So she ran the South Hero Grand Isle Marathon last October, and I did not.
You cheered her on though. That's
yeah.
important.
Yeah. Well, I still wonder if I did the right thing or not, but she said it was okay. But I went down to Burlington for breakfast, came back. I was tracking her on the like Find My Friends app, and I was like, okay, she's doing good. She's doing pretty fast. Wow, okay. And I caught up with her probably because they were pretty, they were holding back on letting people like go all the way around the track anyway, because it's kind of tighter roads. But they started letting people cheer on the runners around mile 20.
Oh my God.
And that's right where she hit the wall.
Oh,
I think
that's awful.
And you could tell she was. I mean, doing way better than a lot of people, but
that's where you need gumption.
Yeah,
you need it when you're hitting that wall, because boy, that thing, you get to 20 and you're just like, I can't believe I have to run 6 more miles.
Ugh.
And it's hard. It's hard to do. It's hard. And then you cross the finish line and you're like, that was awesome. I can't wait to do the next one. That didn't happen to me though.
so yeah, you've run a full marathon.
Yes, I did.
Where did you do that? When did you do it? Tell me all about this experience, because I'm fascinated.
I'm not sure that you really want to know all the gross deeds, because I will tell you it, because I'm pretty much an open book, and I'm sure this happens to everyone or many people. So I ran it with my ex-husband. We had trained for it, and it was hard because we trained separately, and we were probably about the halfway point, and he got a cramp or something happened. I can't remember. His leg, something. And so he had to walk, and I stayed with him, and it took us a long time, but we were able to run towards the end. But then my insides didn't want to stay inside.
Yep.
And there was no porta potty in sight. And thank God, where it was 2 miles left, and I was just ready to let it go. I was just going to I know it sounds terrible, but when you're on your mile 24 and you have to go to the bathroom and there's nowhere for you to do that, and you just want to finish this stupid thing, I was like, it's just going to go. I'm going to have to poop my pants.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thankfully, I didn't. I didn't do that. I didn't do that. It's just.
I feel like I've seen pictures of that on Facebook and always been like, is it really worth it? But I've never been there, right? Like, I guess if you're trained, you invest months and months and
so much
hours and hours of pain. Exhaustion and still going to work while your body hurts and you got to be all in. And you get to mile 24, if you have to crap, like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
He's got to do it.
But
it's
you didn't.
Hard.
You made it.
I made it to the porta potty. It wasn't, and like, I feel bad for anyone that was outside of that porta potty because it was not, it was terrible. But your body, you don't know what your body's going to do. And when you hit that wall, it's really, that's gumption for you. And people do give up, but man, you get that far, you're like, it's 6 more miles, but then your head says 6 more miles. So
yeah,
it's tough.
You have any plans in the future to do it again?
I actually say no, I don't want to, because I don't want to do like the 18 miles, 20 miles training and be exhausted. But I'm in the best shape of my life right now. My runs are really good and I'm feeling good. And it might be nice to do one by myself. That I can determine how well I do. And I really loved the one in Burlington, the Vermont City Marathon.
Yep.
And my dad always did that one. And I loved watching him do it and him going to the finish line. And so proud of him. So proud. And so that kind of makes me want to do it.
I think it was like 2, maybe 3 years ago. I heard that it was so hot during that they like said, no, done. Like,
canceled. They stopped it.
Like mid-race. And there were people that were at mile 18, mile 20, mile 24.
Oh, I would have been so mad.
And you're training this whole time. You're like, wait, I can't finish. And they're like, no, you can't. It's done. It's done. It's canceled. Bye. Like,
I don't know. Maybe I might have been like, oh, it's canceled. Okay, good. Like, I'll stop.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's gonna be done then.
I probably would have been the one that's like, yeah, man. Well, it was a good try. And that, like mile 2.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. Yeah. Duh.
I don't know. I've been keeping it pretty secret, but I'm considering seriously giving it another try.
Good for you. Despite your experience with your
yeah, last year.
What was it?
Yeah, so we were talking before, and so the listeners maybe don't know, and I brought it up a couple times.
It's
I think
really funny.
in other episodes, but yeah, last year I was training to run the marathon with my wife Lauren in October. We started in May, and we were like, oh, why don't we do another marathon, like a half marathon, about halfway, because we would be running that amount of mileage anyway to train, so let's make it fun. So a few of us, our friends, we got together. We got an Airbnb down in Providence, and there was a big Providence City half marathon. And we're like, oh, this is awesome. Let's do it. Worst downpour ever.
Sounds terrible, honestly.
Ever. It was awful. I still have nightmares of running up this bike path, this narrow bike path with hills on either side of you and the water just gushing down in. It was above our ankles. And, of course, I'm usually pretty coordinated, but that day coordination was gone. I fell down from like a loose shoelace at like mile 2 or 3. Got 10 more to go, and then while I'm tying my shoe, a kid runs by and steps on me. So I was ready to go, but my mental like drive to continue training after that race for another 13.1 miles. I was like, I'm not doing that. There's no way. I'm done. Lauren carried on strong and she finished it because she really wanted it, but I did not. But I'm thinking I'm trying it again.
And that was a really bad experience. There's runs that I'll do year after year. Did you do the turkey trot last year?
Not last year.
That was
but
wise.
A year before.
It was -6 with a wind chill
Ugh.
on turkey trot morning. It was the worst. And you know what? I'll go back next year, but you'll have a better experience in a longer one. You just never know.
You never know. You never
know. It
know.
could be a good run or it could be a bad run. It's hard.
It's like a metaphor for life. You never know when things are going to go great, or you're just going to have to.
Or somebody's going to step on you.
Or you're going to have to crap yourself.
Or crap yourself. Yeah, exactly. Oh, it was the worst. Oh my God, it was terrible. Now when I finish, like and this will happen this year when I do the half marathon. So after you have children, and Lauren doesn't know this, and if you do have children, she'll, I think, find out. So after you finish, like even doing a half marathon or a long run of any sort, now when you finish, you're so relieved, you just pee your pants. So I
Oh
just
man.
pee my pants and I just know I'm going to do it. And so one year, the first year it happened, I was wearing cotton running pants. And so everybody saw me pee my pants. And the second year I learned, so I wore like black spandexy ones.
Yep.
And still you could see me peeing my pants. And then I just smelled like pee until I got to go home. It was awful. It was so gross. I was like, pee in my pants.
Yeah, you're
pee in my pants. Yep.
You're really selling the long run thing.
Sorry. I know. It's just hard.
Well, you know what? I guess getting back to like the de-stress piece of it.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's therapy.
Yeah, it is.
It's therapy. If you can find that comfort zone and that whatever pace is meant for you,
yep.
I think my sweet spot is like a 9-minute mile, and I just sit there and I've talked like on a few other episodes, it's like the first one with my friend Jay Condi, one with Tom Bull, a few others, Amy Kretzer, we talked about this, but common theme of if you just turn everything off, your phone, turn everything off, yep. Just don't have any stimulation and just go outside. That's what I do on my runs, and it's actually really loud.
Yeah. Well, I have my music blasting in my ears. Like I'm like, but it's exactly what you have to do in order to work through your problems or
exactly
things I think of my best work ideas on my runs.
Yep.
I really do. And it's funny though, like so many people when they join the running club or my friend Karen, she's just started running because she likes wine and she wants to be able to continue to drink wine and not have it go to her ass. So I don't know if I'm allowed to say swear words on here.
It's fine.
Is okay. Good. So she started running and she's like, well, I'm not a runner yet. And I said, well, how many times what are you running every week? She's running 2 or 3 times a week. And she was like, yeah, but I'm not fast. And I said, it doesn't matter. Like you're a runner. So you run, and have the intent of running. You're not being chased by anything. You're doing it of your own volition. You're a runner and it doesn't matter how long it takes you to get there. Just enjoy it.
Yeah.
And then you'll enjoy running and then you naturally become better. It's a wonderful thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a wonderful thing to watch people realize that.
Yep. Absolutely.
Definitely.
And before I did the Plattsburgh half marathon the first time, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, the longest I'd ever run was maybe 4 miles.
Oh, wow.
I was like an ice hockey player, short burst kind of athletics. And Lauren, of course, setting the example every time, she ran her first half marathon and the Plattsburgh one with her friend. I sat on the sidelines and she's like, anybody can do this. You just have to do it.
Yep.
You just have to do it. If you don't think you can do it, prove yourself wrong. You can do it. And next year, I did it. It was amazing.
Great.
It's like...
Was it a good experience for you? Did you feel good?
Yeah, and ever since I've run, minus my catastrophe in Rhode Island,
right.
I've done like 4 half marathons.
Yeah. They're perfect distance for me, I think.
Yeah.
For anybody, it's not so grueling and the training isn't as bad, but it's good.
Exactly. I think of you, Sandra, and I think of gumption for sure, because I feel like whatever it is that you're attached to work-wise or volunteer-wise, you are just getting after it. I mean, you get after it. It's impressive.
Thank you.
But I want to give you an opportunity to talk about your story of gumption, right? Because what is gumption? I'll start off this. What does gumption mean to you?
It actually, I've been also called scrappy by people in the past, and to me, they're similar. Gumption to me, and it means that you just don't. You persevere despite the odds. You are going for what you want to get, and out of life, or out of a project, or out of a person, and you're just trying. And everything. Actually, now that we say this, and I didn't even mention this to you before, even in my marriage, it was like and in your marriage, in anybody's marriage, gumption is crucial. You have to keep after that. You have to take care of it. You have to communicate. You have to recognize that as you get older, you're changing, your interests change, all your ideas change. I mean, I used to be a Catholic when I was like, I went to Catholic school, and like, I don't think I've stepped foot in a church in years. But so like, to me, it's for everything. And I really do hate failing, but I have had my series of failures, and but gumption to me is definitely just like picking yourself back up after you possibly think you've had your lowest point. And I feel as though there's been a time that I've had my lowest point, and I probably will have other lowest points, but I feel pretty positive now in my life that I might have gotten over that hump. So that's what gumption means to me.
Yeah. So tell us about that.
Okay.
I know you from working at the city and doing amazing things for our city. I know you from Rotary, doing amazing things for Rotary. And now I see all the amazing things you're doing at Meadowbrook. But there's a story that got you through all that.
Yes.
Why don't you
Do you want me how far do you want me to start from like do you want me to tell you how about I don't know where to start. I don't want to start from like when I was born. The day July 26th. I'm turning 40 this year also.
Interestingly, I would love to learn a little bit about just tell me a little bit about like your childhood and what set you on your trajectory to Plattsburgh.
Okay. So I have a wonderful family who I love very much. I have two sisters, Angie and Kate, and my brother Matt. And my brother lives in Myrtle Beach, where my parents live now too. And my sister Angie, she's older. She lives in Pennsylvania. My younger sister Kate lives in Chase Mills, New York, which is just outside of Messina.
Oh wow!
Yes. And I had a very close-knit family. My parents were English teachers at my high school. So I had them my entire high school. And that comes with positives and negatives. My dad was my volleyball coach.
Oh, wow.
And he is very temperamental. He was a varsity boys soccer coach, too. So he taught my brother. And my dad had a terrible temper when he would coach. And when his children would screw up, he'd take the clipboard and he'd slam it on the gym floor, like echo throughout the whole gym. And my mom would be in the bleachers like, Larry, and like he'd do the same on the soccer field. So he was like really competitive. And so we all have that.
Yep.
So I was like, of my siblings, the biggest dork. So I was chunky. I had tons of pimples. I had short curly hair, like afro hair. I was a huge tomboy. Never had a boyfriend. Like boys and me. Boys didn't like me. I liked boys, but boys didn't like me. Yeah. And my sisters were like gorgeous, like size 0 or 2. And always had a boyfriend, a popular boyfriend. I think my sister was like the prom queen. My older sister was like prom court. You remember prom court?
Yep.
My brother was had a gorgeous girlfriend who he's now married to. Oh no, they didn't meet in high school. Sorry, but he had a gorgeous girlfriend. But he was like the MVP of all the sports.
Sure.
Super popular, and I was just this big dork. So I ended up at SUNY Plattsburgh. And that is when I had my first boyfriend at the age of 19, and he then became my husband, and then my ex-husband subsequently. Well, about 17 years later. So I think that's why I kind of ended up. So I ended up in Plattsburgh at college, and then I met my future husband at SUNY Plattsburgh, and we had 2 kids after graduating. We both got our master's degrees from SUNY Plattsburgh, and we had 2 kids. Boy and a girl. And then, I don't know, a while, like probably also 13 years after we got married, we got divorced. Had the best wedding, though. I was just telling this story the other day. What a great wedding. Oh, my God. Peter Caju, who's in our Rotary Club.
Yes,
he was our Peter. DJ.
Nice.
He was our wedding DJ. So he he feels, it was funny when I told him we got divorced. So anyway,
Peter Cadieux dropping the beats.
yes, he was. He
Nice.
did. Yes, he played 50 Cent in the club. That was a big song when we got married, and everybody was on the dance floor. 50 in the club. You know, it's really funny.
Yep.
So then, so during that all, I had worked. My first job out of college was at CVPH Medical Center, which is now University of Vermont Health Network. But I was a manager of community outreach, and for 8 years, and it was a really awesome job. And I still have friends from that job. And just because the way I am, I got bored and decided to leave this awesome job and went to work at SUNY Plattsburgh for a year. So I have a little job jumping that went on here that I'll tell you about more. SUNY Plattsburgh for a year, working with Faith Long in institutional advancement. And that had a lot of travel. And so it was really hard. My kids were really little then, and it just wasn't good. Wasn't a good family vibe at that time. So decided to take a job working for the American Cancer Society, but it was working from my home.
Oh,
and
that's a change.
Well,
that's an adjustment for sure.
It's if anybody knows me, they know that I am just about the biggest social butterfly on this earth, even more so now in my single adult years. And I just love people all around me all the time. I just love it. And so I wanted to, not really, but the word I always say is I wanted to blow my brains out. I was so bored. I hated it. I hated it so much. And so then, because it was a good job, just not for me, you know, and it was just, I was bored.
Yeah.
So then this position opened up with the city of Plattsburgh, and I applied for it, and my now friend and amazing smart guy and visionary, Steve Peters, who used to be the superintendent of recreation for the city, called me and said, hey, yo, you got to come in for an interview for this. So I was like, yeah, oh my God, yeah. Like events and marketing coordinator for the city of Plattsburgh, a new position that the former mayor, Jim Calnon, had created. And so I went in, I was so nervous because it was the mayor of Plattsburgh, you know, and he, like, in my mind, that was intimidating. And I'm interviewed and I got the position. And then basically what happened over the next 2 years of my 3-year time was the best thing in my life. Like, I had never enjoyed my work so much. I finally felt like I had found my niche. I got to create events for the city of Plattsburgh. I got to their social media. This is when I had to learn social media. And I was telling you, I had to learn from people that were 15 years younger than me because I didn't do this. So, and I took the social media from like 100 people following a Facebook page to 8,000, and then across Instagram and Twitter. So total we had 15,000 followers. I was so, and I still talk about this because I'm so freaking proud of that. You know, I'm so proud of that because that was really hard work, and I really, really tried really hard. And
that's you take the politics out of it.
Yeah.
That's what I think of when I think of your gumption. I can just remember being a resident I rented before we owned our home in the town of Plattsburgh, we were renting apartments in the city of Plattsburgh. And I just remember seeing all the stuff that you were working on. I mean, it was like you were going. And I just know that couldn't have been easy work. Fun, maybe, but just all the time. Go.
I was just so passionate about it and passionate about engaging our community. And so about a year after I started at the city is when, sadly, I went through a divorce, and it was really awful. It was really hard for me, and I didn't have friends at the time. So I went into work, and my colleagues became my family and my friends, and like they literally they took care of me, like all of them in City Hall took care of me as I went through this. So I was really attached to them. I'm
envisioning like the Parks and Rec set.
It is. Like, it was. Oh, I just love them. Like I love them all.
You were Leslie Knope, and
yeah, I was totally Leslie Knope.
I don't know who Ron Swanson was, but
maybe I'll say, and I only say this lovingly because I love Jim Calnon. He was a great mayor, but he's definitely would be like the kind of guy like I would go up to him and be like, la 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 la, we're gonna do a Christmas cookie swap or blah, 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 and can you do this and that? And he's like, I don't care. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And he would just do it. He would just do it. And he was so great. He was
That's
so
one
great.
of my
It was
favorite
like-
shows. So it brings me joy just to envision it through Parks and Rec. Yeah,
It was so wonderful. And I worked, like I said, with Steve Peters. And actually, at the time of my becoming single, I was working in community development under Paul D. Dominicus, who was the director of community development. And he is such a great friend to me. I will always, anything he asks me ever for, I will do it because I literally owe him so much. And so these people were really, really close with me. And actually, so then there was a change and we had a new election and we got a new mayor in, and it just wasn't the same for me. And it wasn't the same for a lot of people, and that's okay. It's a change. And but what was the hardest is like a lot of people's positions were abolished because they were trying to do something with the budget and fix the budget. And
Yep.
and so I received an email that told me my position was going to be eliminated. And so I go into work the next day and I'm in my very non-com way, like throwing a fit at Paul and say, oh, I can't believe I'm losing my job. Nobody cares. Blah, blah, blah. I'm not important. Nobody cares about my job. And so Paul, being very calm, cool, collected guy that he is, goes home, comes back in the next day, and we develop this plan that he then proposes to our council, which was that as long as I got to keep my job and my benefits, that they would even eliminate my events budget, which is about $80,000, and that I would raise it myself. I would get sponsors and I would raise it myself. And so over the next 4 months, that's exactly what I did. And I went to sponsors, and I love this city. I love Plattsburgh. I am a Plattsburgh person now. I love where I live. And so it was easy for me to sell it to our community, and our community rose up to it. The last gift I got, the last sponsorship I got, I went to Della Honda. I will never forget this day because it was like it was wonderful. And I was like about $10,000 short of my $80,000 goal. And so I go to Della Honda and I'm meeting with Ernie Galarza, who is an awesome dude. And I'm showing him all this stuff. And I'd already met with him a couple of times because I just wanted to get to know him a little bit. And he looks at the sponsorships. He says, yeah, we're just going to do this $15,000 one. And I almost fell out of my chair. That was the biggest sponsorship I've ever gotten. And it made it so that I could finish it and finish my my fundraising. And so I'm like so overjoyed. I'm so happy. And I go in the car and I call Paul. And I get back to the office. I'm all excited, ecstatic. And he brings me in one of my favorite beers from the beer shop. I love this Evil Twin Brewing. I'm going to say it wrong. Even more Cocoa Jesus.
Yeah.
It's a stout. It's delicious. And he brings it in. And it was just such a great day and such a great experience. And sadly, after that, things kind of fell apart even more.
Yeah.
And eventually other people left. Paul resigned, and I got another position working for Twin State Technologies in Katyville.
Katyville?
Yeah.
Morsonville, yeah.
Something like that.
Yep. Well, they're all over, really. They're in Vermont too now, and Albany, I believe.
Oh, okay.
But yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Thank you. Yes.
Debbie Momont.
Debbie Momont. She's really wonderful.
And the Courier family.
Yes,
yeah.
Clark. Oh, that's a funny story. Clark was really. I'll tell you that. But So anyway, after all that happened, they did a really great newspaper article on me, and it was a really good picture. And they talked about all this fun sponsorship work I'd done, and blah blah blah. And then it was not a month later that I'd resigned to go to Twin State, and my resignation letter was foiled, and then I made headlines, which was really interesting to see on my way to work the next day. Yeah. And so
well, I guess what when you were faced with a challenge, right? Like this is the challenge. We need to raise $80,000 to do what we want to do for the city. How did you approach that challenge? Like, what did you do? What was your strategy behind that? What was your process? I'm just curious.
So
how'd you determine what the best way to proceed was?
Well, so I'd always done sponsorship work minimally with community businesses. We didn't need that much, but I would do it anyway. So I just went to all my existing sponsors first. But I had a nice little song and dance routine. But I'm a little different than a lot of the people that I've seen in this kind of line of work. Like, they'll go in with suits and they'll be very like, here's my PowerPoint or whatever the heck you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a North Country girl. So I just kind of go in and I want to make people my friend. So I can relate to anybody pretty much, and I often tend to make fun of myself, and I think people like that, and I've just had a way, and so I would just go to people and say, listen, you guys always rock and give me $1,000 every year, and I can't ever thank you enough for that, but I have to tell you that if you want vibrancy in the city, and they'd seen it already in the proof of the events I'd done, and so they increased their sponsorships. And then I would go to new people and just lay it out. And even if I got a $500 gift, everybody got recognition. And that's another thing is I've always been really great about following up with my sponsors and making them feel special.
Yeah.
It's so important. You know, they're giving something, get something out of it.
It shouldn't be a transaction. It should be more of a relationship where they feel like they invested in company. They have some ownership in it now, right? Like they feel that.
Yep.
That's important.
It is. And it makes them feel good to have their business or recognized, like I always found creative ways. I tried really hard. I was all night. I was a lot. So that's how I think I just kind of figured it out, and I knew I could do it. I just had to do it. And it just took a lot of time and follow up. So I left, but I told you this story, and I always tell this story because it's so funny because I'm such a drama queen. As I got in from one of my colleagues at the city, Bree, she bought me this really lovely mug, and I can't remember why. And it was Christmas, I think, and I loved it. And it had this really cute saying on it, and I loved it. And she left too because we had all these people leaving, and she as I'm packing up my one box, there's nobody left in City Hall to even say goodbye to. And I'm going out the door, and my mug falls out of my box and smashes on the ground of the rotunda in City Hall. It's like all these really hard floors. And there's nobody there. There's literally no one left in City Hall at this time because pretty much everybody had resigned or left or whatever.
Oh, man.
And it shattered all over the floor. And not kidding you, and I retell it because there was no cameras to capture it, fall to my knees, sobbing in my hand, like, oh, why is this happening to me? And cried all the way out of City Hall. And it was traumatic. It was like a death. I was so, so sad. And so this is a long story. I'm sorry.
No, this is good.
So I went to Twin State.
Yeah.
And it was a great, they're a great business. They have been really successful. I was recruited, and I was to be, I think it was digital media strategy or something specialist.
Yeah.
And what I didn't know was that so it was just a lot different culture than I was used to, and I wasn't busy. And I need to be engaged. I need to have a task. I need to have something. And I just don't feel, I just wasn't the right person for that job. So it wasn't about that. It wasn't about anybody I worked with. In fact, there was great people that work there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, on my third month there, I think it was 3 months, I went in without really a plan in mind. I didn't even think about it. I go into work and I turn on my computer and turned it off, walked across the hall and told my supervisor that I wasn't the right girl for the job. And I didn't have a plan, and it was insane.
Wow.
I just couldn't spend another day. So connections you have in our nice small area is one of our fellow Rotarians, Sylvie Nelson, had told me
Yep.
she would hire me at doing an administrative job for $15 an hour, which, I'm almost 40 now. That was hard. That was a big pay cut. But she said, you'll have a health insurance until you find something else. So it was so kind of her. And I will always be thankful to Sylvie for that.
This is where the gumption had to kick in, though.
Yeah, so I had
You
to
got
end
two
up,
kids.
yeah, I had two
Yeah.
kids. And so I took this big pay cut thinking, so we had this plan with Clinton Community College Foundation. So actually the day I resigned, that day I had lunch with Steve Frederick, who you had on the show, who I adore, and Meg Morrissey, who also
Mm-hmm.
works in the foundation. And we had this plan that we're gonna create a position for me with them doing similar things that I do now. And so we wrote up this big job, and it was proposed to the foundation board. They all approved it. But the college is going through some really hard financial times. So, despite the foundation board having approved it, the president of the college, who's a very nice man, said that all hiring was going to be frozen for 6 months.
Hmm.
And
Tough.
that
That's
was after
tough.
waiting 3 months. All summer long, I waited for that job. And I thought it was going to be, and it was, decent pay, nothing, a little less than I made at the city, but still better than $15 an hour. And at that point, when I found out that this is actually, I didn't mention this, but the day I found out that my job was being postponed, my electricity got shut off in my apartment that I could not afford to live in anymore.
Oh my
And
God.
I was so devastated. I was so devastated. I just I had like no money. I had to borrow money from my parents all the time, and it was awful. It was awful. And so after that Clinton Community College job fell through, I'm still working at the Workforce Development Board, and I had a couple opportunities. I had 3 interviews with Planned Parenthood, and after the 3rd interview, they wanted to offer me the position, and then the next day they emailed me and said, "Oh, actually, sorry that we cut it." So I didn't have that, and I remember laying in my room because I now had to move in with my friend Amy because I couldn't with my 2 kids into her giant home, and because I just needed help, and so I was in my room just like sobbing, and Amy came to the door and she was like, "So you cry tonight, and tomorrow morning you're gonna get up and you're gonna get back at it." And I was like, "Okay," and it was
But
like,
I laugh, but like, that's just like, that's crazy, that I never would have known. I never would
yeah.
have known. I mean, I've seen you, on and off over the years and at Rotary or wherever in the community. And I mean, I never would have known. You were holding yourself together
Yeah,
from what
sort
I
of.
could tell.
Yeah. Well, I told you I even had to resign from Rotary because I couldn't afford the $6 a week. I was like, do I get gas or do I get a coffee and a little mini muffin at Rotary? So it was bad.
It's crazy. And I mean, well, I interrupted your story,
Oh, it's
but
okay.
and you were just about to come out of it. It was like we're
Yeah, I
going
know.
into
I'm going to the good part, right?
we'll get back to that.
Yeah.
But like it brings to light to me just the question of, how many people have hit a similar road
Oh,
and
yeah.
in our community, and they just need a little bit of support. I hear John Bernardi talking about it all the time.
John Bernardi. Oh, that's another person. Yes, he's
Yeah.
fantastic. So it was, and so that's where he comes into actually comes into my story, as you know. But so a couple weeks after the Planned Parenthood thing fell through, which I actually wasn't even that excited about. I just needed a better job.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes into my office or my workspace, and if you know John, he's always this way. He was like, "You know what you should do? You should apply for this job at Meadowbrook and tell him John Bernardi told you to." And I said, "Okay,
Nobody can say no to John.
Nobody can say
That's
no
the
to John.
phrase,
Nope, nope." So I did. I followed his advice, and the next day, Mr. Paul Richards, Meadowbrook CEO, an administrator, called me and said, "Do you want to come in for an interview? It's not really an interview. I just want to have a chat with you. Nothing formal. Don't dress up. Blah, blah, blah." And I probably shouldn't say this, but I told you, and it was like, it was just like, I kind of was just like, what is going to disappoint me? What is going to disappoint me now? Like, just everything had been falling through, and I couldn't imagine that a nursing home, because Meadowbrook Healthcare is a nursing home and rehab facility, how much could they really pay a marketing person? And so I go in the next day, and he comes out and he brings me back, and he's telling me about, he's a really awesome dude. I've been there 18 years, and he brings me into his office, and he's telling me all about Meadowbrook and all about nursing homes and Medicare, Medicaid, and how we're lucky Meadowbrook's doing well, blah, blah, blah. And then he kind of says, he says, "Well, I didn't really bring you in here to talk about this. I already know the work you do. I already called some people to get references, and I've been following the work you did at this with the city and everything, and I'm impressed." And he says, "I wish I would have recorded it because I would play it back to myself. Just if I was having a bad day, I would listen to it again."
Yeah.
And he said, "I already knew I was going to offer you this job." And he says, I think you're gonna be a really good part of this team, and he offers me wonderful benefits right away. And
Yeah.
then he asked me what my salary requirements are. And at that time, like I'm telling you, I'm like pinching pennies. I had like no money, and couldn't figure out how I was going to pay for anything ever. And I told him what my salary requirements are, which were very, very low, but still better than what I was making. And all I can say
He blew
is
you out of
that
the park.
he changed my life forever.
Yeah.
I get really teary-eyed when I think about it because he changed my life and my kid's life forever. And
It's like a Cinderella story. It's like the gumption finally paid off.
And that's exactly what he said. And I told you this, and I tell people this. And I did a presentation at SUNY Plattsburgh a few weeks ago, and I told them this story. And this exactly what Mr. Richards had said to me. He said, I'm sitting there and I'm just like in awe. I'm like crying in front of my new boss, my soon-to-be boss.
Yeah.
And I'm like, thank you so much. And he's like, you don't have to thank me. You worked hard. You deserve this. And I was just like, it took me forever to believe ever that you deserve such good things. And honestly, there's not been a day since I've been there that just as an example, when I told you I run every morning, so
Yeah.
I will make it a point at least a few times a week to run up Boynton Hill, or as people call Boynton Hell, from my house, and to run by Meadowbrook. And when I go by Meadowbrook, I blow a kiss every time I go by. And
wow,
it's amazing because it's just hard to believe. You never think you're a person that's so deserving of such wonderful things. And when you're in a line of business like me, like marketing is at this time sadly undervalued.
Yeah.
I get on a soapbox all the time with companies about how marketing and social media are so crucial. So crucial. They're such a powerful tool. And it's example I can show you at the city of Plattsburgh, but as of recently, Meadowbrook, it's blowing things up. People love it. Staff morale is amazing. I started a staff spotlight that I had to beg people to be part of in the beginning, and now I have a folder that it's going to take me 3 months to get through because staff are nominating each other. It's amazing, amazing experience, and I have so much freedom and flexibility, and I just love it. And I think that everything kind of fell into place and happened for a reason. But yeah, I had to really bust my butt, to even get that far.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's amazing how hard work truly does just pay off sometimes.
Well, and it's a benefit again. Like there's downfalls and not upfalls, you know what I'm saying? Like upsides and downsides too, living in such a small, tight-knit community, where you know everyone. But like the people in this community, I haven't always been perfect. I am not the most awesome person ever all the time. Like I definitely have my flaws, and I can be
as
brash,
we all do.
Yeah, and I'm not always the best behaved, but I try, and I feel like the people that really have helped me in my life, everyone, my family, my friends, and any colleagues, professional colleagues, we all kind of look out for each other when in times of need. And I think it's a good point. That was a good moral to that story. And now when I walk around the city, I don't feel sad because I'm no longer in charge of all the events. I feel pride and happiness that I can go to a restaurant and eat food there and pay for it and not ask if they have any openings. I love where we live, and I just want to do good things for it. And that's why I think I told you. So after the city, and I did all the social media work, and I really learned a lot since starting at Meadowbrook. Like I've had a couple businesses in the community that have reached out to me to talk to them about how they can do better. And it's such an underutilized tool that I think people are starting to come to with the fact that people are getting their information from Facebook or Twitter or even Instagram. And that the more you capitalize on that, and it's so easy to do. It's so easy to do. You do a very good job with your social media.
I do okay.
You do good. You do good with. You're a good hashtagger.
Yeah, hashtags are key. Hashtags are key.
Yes, hashtags are key.
But I could certainly do better. So let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, half of your success probably is strictly just getting the gumption to get continuously better at social media.
Oh, totally.
So tell me, social media 101. Most listeners probably have a grasp on how they can be effective with social media, but just give me your philosophy on approaching that for a business.
You're going to just wish you never would have asked me this. This is like my passion. This is my passion. I wish I could just have a hat and t-shirt that says social media is king. Although there are some people that would disagree with me, and
before we get into it, I see it as a double-edged sword. I see it as this amazing opportunity for people to connect on a level and share information on a level that it's been unprecedented in human history. But at the same time, it allows people, I sound old when I'm saying this, but the young people to disengage from real conversation.
Totally. Or oh my gosh, we always talk about this, me and my girlfriends, because I have a lot of single girlfriends. Actually, it turns out there's an age bracket where women tend to get divorced. It's right around my age, and we talk about how awful it is dating, and you are seeing a guy and you message them and they're online. Why aren't they answering your message? And you're fixated on the opportunity to see who's online and when and how active they are and why aren't they? They must be busy. They must have got tied up with something. It's awful. So I definitely see the pros and the cons. It's terrible. So if I were to what I say to these different businesses is that you got to keep it short and sweet, and to me, if I see a post that has terrible grammar, I just want to claw my eyes out. You need to be able to write and string a sentence together. The fun thing about social media writing is it's not as restrictive. It's not as rule oriented. There's not you can, instead of a period, you can do an emoji, and emojis are great. You can add a personality to your post. So you keep it short and sweet as much as you can, although sometimes they have to be longer. But then always images. I always think that if you're talking about something and you just post text, then, oh my gosh, I won't even, I can't even, I'm bored just talking about it. I'm boring myself talking about it. Ugh. So have an image, but then don't have an image that's boring too, So, if you're going to talk about something that's okay, so I talked to AES Northeast a while ago, and they were so fun. So my friend from City, Paul DiDominicus, works for AES now, so he's on this marketing committee, and they asked me to come in, and I had looked at their social media page, and they're very smart people. This is a really good company. They do a lot of good things, but they would do these little posts saying GIS tip number whatever, and I don't know what GIS is. I looked it up. That's fine. But but they would have a GIS tip, but with just little writing of the GIS tips. And I'm like, so how about you do a GIS tip, but you take a video of somebody saying the GIS tip, because they're really short and sweet and videos are good. Yeah. Or do an image that represents a project that you're working on. And so they're like my little baby. I like to watch them do their posts because they're doing so great. They're doing so great. They are engaging their audience. They're taking pictures. It takes them a little bit of time because it takes a lot of time. And so they're engaging their audience. They're keeping their text nice and short and sweet. They're getting a lot more shares. They're getting staff involvement. I said, that's crucial. Get your staff. Meadowbrook, that's how they get their news, because a lot of our Meadowbrook staff follow the page and they hear all the things on our Meadowbrook page. People know me that I don't know because of our Facebook page. And so keeping it short and sweet, having an image always or a video, and posting fairly routinely. So, I post every day, at least once a day, sometimes twice a day. But if you have the ability to post every day, that's really great. The other thing I really have been trying to hit home with them and another group is that this marketing today is not like marketing from back in the day. Social media and other types of marketing, because you still got to do all your press releases, you got to do all that stuff.
Yep.
It takes a lot of time. And if you don't have somebody that has only their sole, one of their main priorities is to do that, it gets shuffled around and put on the back burner. But it's so crucial to getting new business, getting new customers, getting awareness of programs that you're doing, anything at all. I mean, and it allows you to give yourself a personality. So now AES is a perfect example because they're intentionally regional. So they're a North Country architecture firm, right?
Mm-hmm.
And their Facebook page was very formal, very dry.
Yep.
And now we're seeing like them. We're seeing their staff. We're seeing them smiling. And at Meadowbrook, it's been wonderful because now our nursing and LPN recruitment has been better. We have reduced costs in publications promoting our advertising positions, and the staff love the different things that we're doing. And now, though, I think my warmth, in the beginning I was new, so they're being kind to me. Now when they see me coming, they're like, nope, my hair looks disgusting today. Nope. I'm like, oh, come on, whatever, but it's wonderful. It's such a wonderful way to connect people. I just can't say enough about it. I wish I could do everyone's social media for them.
Do you take different strategies for different platforms?
Yes. So with Twitter, I know you're a Twitter guy.
I mean, I use Twitter primarily for news. Like, I'm a reader of Twitter. I have a couple things, like the podcast is automatically linked, so when I put out a new episode, it automatically tweets for me. And there's a couple things that are like, okay, if it's pretty low maintenance, I'll retweet or do something quick. But
podcasts, actually, no, I'm wrong, because podcast is like the jam on Twitter. Like, Twitter is podcast central. Like, there is so many podcasts on Twitter and that's a great way to get podcast to podcast follows.
The reason I asked the question, though, is because I feel like I'm slowly figuring out Twitter. It's so simple. There's nothing really to figure out, I guess, but like, it seems like I can get so much more attraction and following from Facebook and especially Instagram. But Twitter, especially because it's so text heavy. Yeah. I mean, you can put the photos in, but it seems like it's got to be at such a higher frequency to get any traction on Twitter. Things are moving so fast. Whereas, like, I consider LinkedIn like the opposite of that. Like, I almost think it's a bad idea to put a time-stamped post on LinkedIn, like, Monday motivation, because the feed is so slow and it sticks around. It's It's Thursday. It's Thursday and you're finally seeing somebody's Monday motivation because it's just how the algorithm works. And you're like, that doesn't work. Yeah. It doesn't work on LinkedIn like that. So I asked the question because I recognize that all the different platforms are sort of at a different pace. So I was curious if you figured that out, or I don't know if there is anything to figure out, but
I actually haven't figured. So here's what I do for the difference. So with Facebook, I actually don't hashtag that much. I'll hashtag, like, I'll always hashtag the business. I always hashtag Meadowbrook Healthcare because I just feel like you gotta. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell that to any other business too. Always hashtag your business. And if there's something funny that you can hashtag, like, just a hashtag staff spotlight, I'll do that on Facebook. But then, so I use Hootsuite. Have you ever heard of Hootsuite?
Never.
Hootsuite, Hootsuite. I started working with that when I worked at the city, and it allows you to post to various platforms all at one time with one post. It's fantastic. And if you only have 3 pages that you're using, then it's free. If you get 4 pages, then you have to start paying for it. It's fantastic.
Interesting.
Yes, it's awesome. And so the best thing about it too is, so I will post, but then with Instagram, you'll get a notification on your phone. And you have to go on to Hootsuite to get your notification. And you get this, you have your post ready to be published. But then this is where the magic happens on Instagram. Oh, it's so beautiful. I love this. It's like so fun. So a friend of mine had shared with me like some different hashtags that you should use. And I started using them, but then I realized, wow, you use these different hashtags, but then you're using a whole bunch of, so you use, and I can't believe I'm sharing my secrets, but hashtag like for likes, hashtag like for likes, FORLIKES, and hashtag likes for follow. But then there's a whole bunch of other ones you can do. And basically what happens is the first time I ever did it, I was just staring at my phone, and it takes me forever to get somebody to follow, like something on Instagram if we don't have any followers. So in 6 months from the hashtagging, and I'll hashtag, so if I'm hashtagging, like I also do some social media work for Adirondack Coast events. They do all run to race timing.
Very cool.
And so I'll hashtag run. 20 million hashtag searches for the word run. Running is even more. Runner is even more. So those, then you have people that are searching these hashtags, seeing these races, and it's boosted their following. But in 6 months, we have almost 200 followers on Instagram for a nursing home. Like for a nursing home, we have 200 followers on Instagram. And
wow,
so that's
crazy.
why I like Hootsuite, is because it forces you don't have to do the hashtags in every post, but on Instagram, you want to add those. And then, of course, Instagram is great because it remembers your former hashtags. And on Twitter, I don't like Twitter because there's so many, their character limit is hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. It's a good guide because if you can stay under that limit, you're still good and nice and short and brief for Facebook or Instagram. But what I found with Twitter, those who you follow will generally follow you back. But for Meadowbrook, it's not been as successful. And I just think it's because Twitter for me is very much more business or news oriented. And Meadowbrook, we're not there. My intent with our Meadowbrook page is, one, like helping to recruit staff, showing what a wonderful place Meadowbrook is to work. And two, to also attract people that are at an age bracket where they need help, and or families, their kids know that their parent or loved one needs extra care, and it's a way for me to showcase what a wonderful place it is to live.
Yeah.
So Twitter doesn't really necessarily help me with that as much, but I still post to it just because you never know. I agree with you about LinkedIn. LinkedIn is it's a bear.
It's a different. And I've seen some. I think it depends what your target audience is, but I mean, I see so many people launching their sales consulting businesses kind of thing on LinkedIn, and I don't know, it's a little exhausting.
But you don't understand it either.
It's a different following, but there's a have you heard of Gary Vee?
No.
Gary Vee? Okay, so he's a big podcaster, business entrepreneur, and very successful guy. Has a very successful consulting podcast kind of thing going on, but he can be a little harsh too. But where I was going with that is he has stated that Instagram is the number one like social media that every entrepreneur and business owner should be trying to leverage in 2019
Wow, how come?
Because he feels like the tool of Instagram with photos, but the amount of content and hashtags that you can do, and also the ability to search content and find new things is it's incredible.
Yeah.
And he thinks that Instagram, now that it's owned by Facebook, it's going to be the number one social media platform, if it's not already, for trying to grow a business.
Well, and across all demographics, like so Facebook, we were talking earlier, like so it's perfect for me in my line of work because Facebook attracts folks like me, folks like 30 or more. 38 years or older.
Oh boy, I'm almost in that category.
You are an old Facebook user. But like my parents are on Facebook. My grandpa is on Facebook. So like you really catch everybody that you want that at least for me, that you want to attract. But Instagram, so you're getting like that's the 20 somethings. The 20-year-olds think Instagram is okay. They do not think it's for old people. So Instagram is very useful across all. But I'm noticing, and it might be my own experience, so it's limited, but the older you are, Instagram isn't as much for people. Yeah. Facebook really is like, it's like people say, oh, I'm only on Facebook because I want to see pictures of the family. But I'm like, when people tell me they're not on Facebook, I'm like, how do you know what's happening? Like, how do you know what's going on in the world or with your? But you're right. It's a double-edged sword. It's like it's got its ups and downs.
Well, that's it. My best friend lives down in Albany. He was episode 1. He does not have any social media at all. He's like, if I ever had to get back into it, he's like, I don't even know how I would do it. He's like, I don't have a Facebook. I don't have an Instagram. I don't have Snapchat. I don't have Twitter. I don't have any of it. He's like, I refuse. And, kudos to him. But he has, so I see the double-edged sword there. He lives an incredibly fulfilling life for what he wants to do, but he also is very disconnected from our friends.
Isn't that sad? Now, you count on it to have maintained friendships. Isn't that crazy?
In a real, it's like who's right? I don't know who's right. Because I totally see like the sickness of addiction with social media. Mm-hmm. Kind of taking a digression here, but it's just an interesting philosophical point of like he's outside all the time. He's enjoying his life all the time, and
he doesn't just have the stresses.
He's not worrying about how many likes he's got, and in a way, he's like I say from my perspective. He's maybe disconnected. He's probably listening to the podcast, but he's disconnected from friends. But he still has a cell phone, and he can still call people, and he still stays in touch with people, and it's not like he's cut off. Yeah. So it's interesting. Like he's got everything he needs to stay connected, but also stay totally disconnected from. Isn't it interesting?
It's so funny because I used to be like before this all existed. I remember going to the grocery store as a married woman. I was old. I was like at least in my 20s, and like. I didn't even have a cell phone.
Right.
And
you go for a run, you don't have a cell phone.
It's just bizarre to me. And like my friend that I work with, she forgot her phone at home when she came to work, and she couldn't go back and get it until her lunch break. And she was like, are you going anywhere today? I left my phone at home. I'm going to die for 4 hours. And I'm like,
that's what I'm talking about.
Imagine
that's
leaving
the crazy
your phone
thing.
somewhere. Oh, geez. Like, I mean, God.
That's your lifeline. Yeah. This is we'll have to have you on again and just talk about this because it's so interesting to me. There's a podcast with Elon Musk on Joe Rogan, and Tesla and all. Like he talks about how he predicts the next layer of that is going to be like actual chips. Where you're like, it's in your head,
God,
because
I really hope not. I really do.
Well, it was interesting because I was just listening to that podcast, and Joe Rogan asked Elon Musk, this incredibly brilliant dude who's, launching ships into space, SpaceX, and he's got Tesla and all these things. And he's like, do you think like people could become cyborgs? And his answer was, "We already are."
Oh,
but it
kind of right.
Well, because to your point of like your coworker or your friend, who's like, "Oh, I don't have my phone." It's like part of them is missing, like part of their. I don't know. I'm taking a very interesting turn on this episode, but
it's so true.
But if you think about how, if I ask you a question and you don't know the answer, you pull out your phone and you Google it.
Yep.
He's right. I mean, the only difference is you're just not physically typing into a phone to get Google. You just, it's in you or
Imagine
whatever. But
like my kids. This is a whole other topic.
Yeah.
This it goes like my kids have always known technology. Have always my kid, my daughter is almost 10. My son is 13. They both have iPhones.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, not iPhones. They have Androids, but they both have phones.
smartphones.
They have smartphones because you have a smartphone when you're 10 and 13. Some people would disagree that that's appropriate, but like everybody's kids has phones now. It's just crazy. And
I remember being just getting old enough to where I was on like I remember first varsity sport I was on I was an 8th grader and I got on the golf team.
Okay.
I love golf, but it sounds so nerdy saying
now.
that. But I had to go to practice after school in 8th grade, and I remember being one of the only kids there that had a cell phone, and it was the entire family's cell phone. And it was this boxy like Nokia thing, and I got it only on days that I knew like I was going to have to it was for one purpose. You keep it in your bag, you don't pull it out until you need to call and say practice is over. That's it. I remember I texted somebody with it just to see, and I had to like, click like 3-4 times to get one letter, and then I might have played Snake while I was waiting or something, and it racked up this like massive bill from one text, because back then it was like, I don't know, 25 cents a letter or some crazy thing.
That's so funny.
But yeah, so I mean,
you almost wonder if that's better.
I came up in the time where I know what it was like not having it, but now I've spent more of my life with it, and it's interesting.
Well, now it's for me, it's hard because like there are days I wish that I didn't have to be on social media, but it's now part of it's my job, and I constantly, do you know what the first thing I do when I wake up? I go onto a Meadowbrook Facebook page and see and assess how many likes I got on posts from the previous day. And do you know what's even sadder? That's what determines if my day is going to be good or bad. So bad. I'll send because I have to send my boss, I send him screenshots because he is not on social media, but he has come to ground to the fact to see it's the benefit that it does do.
Yep.
And so I had to send him screenshots of every post I do from the week previous. And I'll always say, this was a really good week in social media. And like, it's like, for me, it's just like, I love seeing things do well, but it's a lot of work.
My wife and I saw an episode of Black Mirror. Have you seen Black Mirror?
No, I haven't.
So Black Mirror, it's almost like the modern Twilight Zone or something.
Ooh. I've heard of it. Okay.
Yeah, so we don't really watch a lot of TV, but like occasionally we've found some interesting shows. And Black Mirror, it's called Black Mirror because of if you turn your phone off and you look at it, your phone is a black mirror, right? So that's the kind of the premise of the show. But it's about like technology and all these weird things if you're not interested in like having a mind,
not
a mind
like scaring myself into
a mind, thing. Don't watch the show.
Okay, well.
But this one, it was interesting because it was a little bit more bright colors and happy, but everybody's life was you were judged as a citizen based on your like social status through social media.
Ugh.
So like if you and I walked up to each other and we had a good interaction, I'd rate you 5 stars and you'd rate me 5 stars. And then all the 5 stars people were like basically living as the wealthiest elite, but the people who had bad experiences were rated at 2, or they weren't allowed to board a plane, or they weren't allowed to rent a car, and it was like this social media based currency almost. It was,
it doesn't seem so far-fetched, I'm sorry to say.
But you think about it, I mean, you do it, I do it. I wake up and I check did I get it? Did anybody like praise me for my content yesterday? I wanted, right? That's what it is.
Yes, I know. Isn't that so crazy?
That's the negative for sure. But the positive is I am now able to connect with people that I never would have been able to otherwise.
Exactly. Yeah. And I have so many friends on Facebook that are professional, like business type friends that are acquaintances. Mm-hmm. But now when I see them, I remember their name because I'll see that they post pretty routinely. You know what I mean? And it does connect you and it is a benefit, but it's such a touchy, so many things.
Conversation for another
Oh,
episode.
for several episodes. We could go on forever. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I'm going to pivot into the infamous Stories of Gumption rapid fire.
Oh.
I got
Okay.
three questions for you.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I think so.
Okay. Nobody's ever really ready, but
I feel like my answers are going to be just the crappiest. And I'm going to be embarrassed that I said them, but that's okay.
I think they're going to be great.
Okay. Well, you'll see.
Full of gumption. We'll see. First one. What is your favorite book and why?
All right. Well, I'm going to tell you what my favorite book is. And my son asked me this very question the other day, and I said the same answer. And I don't know if it was a good mom moment or a bad one, but it's not because I can't see I'm already making excuses for my selection. I can't believe I'm going to say it, but I will. So I really enjoyed, for a different reason than you're going to think, the 50 Shades of Grey. And here's why.
Okay.
So I'm not a big crazy reader. I'm not.
Yep.
I'll read things here and there, but I really do I will admit, I like romance, crazy, stupid romance books, which is ironic. Sure. And so 50 Shades of Grey I read, and it actually was so fun to read, and so many people, my mom read it, like my sister read it, and we loved it. And like it was so much fun to talk about, and like I literally was in love with Christian Grey. Like my face was in those books for forever. And I just it's a funny thing for me because it really brought women together to talk about sex in a different way.
Yeah.
And so even though it seems silly and like dumb and trivial, and I don't really prescribe to whatever they did in those books, but I just thought it was a really cool step in women's sexuality, and we started talking about things that you definitely didn't normally talk about, and that's why I'm going to stick by my choice. That's right, women's sexuality. There we go. See, I brought it around. I made it sound
good for
smarter.
You. Good for you. No,
but I really did like them, and they're really fun, and they were really romantic. So I like romance.
No, that's great.
There you go.
That's great. Admittedly, I'm aware of it, but I've never read it.
You might not like them. You might not. I've not met a man that has liked them or actually read them, because I don't know. That might be
my wife read it.
Did she hate it? Some women don't like them.
She said she liked it.
I liked it. It was really good.
For the same reasons you just said.
Yeah. It was entertaining. And the movies are terrible. I'm so awful, but that's neither here nor there.
I don't know. I like your explanation.
Thank you.
Awesome. Question number 2.
Okay.
What is a piece of advice that you would give your 18-year-old self if you could?
I would say to my 18-year-old self that try not to care so much all the time about what everybody else thinks of you. Just try to be yourself as much as you possibly can. Let your freak flag fly, and say how you feel when you feel it, and own it. And I just never did that until, as I'm getting closer to 40, like probably in the past couple of years. It's really been an evolution for me to watch myself really let my freak flag fly.
And you just feel so empowered now.
I do. I feel so good. Like it's just when I was 18, 19, 20, 30, you're self-conscious. You're like, weight is a terrible thing for women, especially when you have kids and you're going through that whole thing. I actually, in one of my jobs, my boss had, and he's no longer with us, rest in peace, so I can say it, but he had actually said I was heavy, and it was really awful. It was really awful. It was really awful, and it was really, but now, if that were to happen to me, I'd be like, yeah, I know. Because mozzarella sticks at Hobie's, man, they make me crazy. I love them. Freaking love mozzarella sticks at Hobie's. So yeah, that's what I tell myself. Just try not to focus so much on what everybody else thinks and be yourself.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Last question. My favorite question.
Okay.
The board of directors question. I don't know if you've heard it before, but here it is. So if we could assemble a 3-person board of directors for your life to guide and mentor you through the rest of your life, who would they be? They could be dead, alive, famous, not famous. who would those 3 people be that you would pick to be on your board of directors, and why?
Okay. It's nobody famous. It's nobody deceased. It's the people in my life that I count on for advice. So I would say if I can jointly say my mom and dad, I talk to my mom mostly, but her and my dad consult. So my parents.
Yep.
Okay.
One unit.
And then I'm cheating at your questions, but you're gonna have to deal with it because
Sure.
I'm gonna say it anyway. My next unit would be my friends. So I have some wonderful, amazing, supportive, fantastic friends that have helped me through everything, every day. And we're so close. And so there are just a few of them, and they know who they are, but they are the people that I go to for advice, reassurance, honesty on a daily basis. And the last one is another collective. It's my children. And I know they're only 10 and 13, but they are a very good guide for me. I've chosen very specifically to remain alone, a single woman, and since separating from my husband. And it's because I know exactly, it's allowed me to become so much more in touch with what the people that they are, and they're so amazing, and they only want good things for their mom. Like, they love me, so I ask them advice all the time, and I have a pretty open book about everything. Like, if I go on a date or anything, they know about it, and they're like, oh, here we go, like, Another one, mom's going to mess up or something like that. But they're really great because they tell me things because they care about me. And I really, we have a wonderful friendship too. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah. So I kind of cheated at your question.
That's okay.
I didn't want to identify specific people except for my parents, of course. But I have a whole little family that is wonderful to me. And I'm so lucky.
Well, I put you on the spot too. That's a pretty good answer.
That's a pretty hard question, man. Can I ask, if you've asked that question before, what's the most unique answer you've ever received?
Oh my gosh. I've asked this question to so many people, even before the podcast when I was working for ETS. Boy, I've gotten the whole works. I've gotten WWE wrestlers to Barack Obama and Michelle Obama to Joe Rogan. I've heard people say Joe Rogan. A lot of parents, a lot of grandparents.
Donald Trump.
I've gotten one of those.
No, really? Wow.
I have. Yep. To each his own.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean,
this is a non-political show.
Yeah,
yes.
Non-political show.
Absolutely.
But I've had some really interesting. Steve Jobs is a popular one. A lot of local people. It's been interesting to hear people's answers because I feel like you learn a lot about people and what their values are.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's true. Because really I'm so lucky because I just have me and my 2 kids, but I have this whole collective of support from my mom friends and from my family. And they're the people I actually do go for advice every single time I screw up or do something, or when I was going through all this job craziness where gumption really had to come in, I tell this story that I had gone to a family reunion before I got my position at Meadowbrook and had been just doing so terribly and blaming it on pretty much everyone else but myself. And my dad said, "How long are you going to do that?" And it kind of kicked me in the butt. And sometimes you just need people to be honest with you. And that's the people that I would take advice from, is the people that I know on a regular basis are honest with me and tell me what I want them to, not what I want them to tell me, but what's true.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
And there's a lot of gumption and perseverance.
Yes, totally. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And everything happens as it should, but really definitely gumption helps you to get to the point that you end up being in. If you just sit back and let things happen to you, be like, well, everything bad's happening to me and nothing good's going to happen. And I sound like April from Parks and Rec, don't I? Wow, weird.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
great show.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you one last opportunity to plug you or Meadowbrook or whatever
really
you wanted to. Oh yeah, I try and do this for everybody, but you don't have to give a Rotary dollar either
to
make an announcement.
Thank you. I know,
but, go for it. one last plug, how people can get in touch with you, or an event or something you're working on, volunteering for, that you want to plug in the podcast, go for it.
Okay, actually, I will do that. I will say Meadowbrook, obviously, from what I've said prior to this, is a wonderful facility. We recently received the Employer of the Year award from the Champlain Valley Business and Professional Women's Organization, and so that's super awesome.
Nice.
But I'm actually, one of my new roles is I'm taking over the volunteer program that we have, because it's kind of in my wheelhouse. I did that at the hospital, and I did a lot of volunteer work when I was working for the city. I oversaw volunteers. So I'm taking that on, and this summer I'm launching a junior volunteer program at Meadowbrook. So it's ages 14 through 18. And they have to do a minimum of 2 hours per week for 6 weeks. And it is going to be a great opportunity to see all the different awesome opportunities in the wonderful world of medical or of healthcare, and from all different levels, administrative to medical. And so we're really excited to get some young people into Meadowbrook, and also to help us to enrich the lives of some of our community's most fragile humans. And they are some outstanding stories and people living in those walls. And I have had the wonderful opportunity to appreciate age so much more. Like turning 40, I'm psyched about it. Where before I was like, geez, turning 40, oh my God. But now I'm like, I've got 40 more years at least left to give, you know, and things are going to be great.
That's awesome.
And it just keeps getting better and better. So
awesome.
Well, that's it.
How do people get in touch with you?
Oh, yeah, sorry. They can email me at sgeddes, SGEDDES, at meadowbrookhealth.com. Or they can always call Meadowbrook 563-5440. Or you can look at me on Facebook, because I'm on Facebook, Sandra Elizabeth. You know, I'm always got my face on it, so I pretty much can't not see it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, yes.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Well, this has been great.
Yes, thank you so much, Ryan. I had a great time.
Awesome. I had a great time too. I'm glad you came on and certainly learned a lot today.
Awesome.
I did.
And yeah, well, me too.
I would be remiss if I didn't say you do. You have a lot of gumption. Stick with it. You're doing great things for Plattsburgh.
Thank you.
I like it a lot.
Ditto.
We also need to do one last shout out for our sponsors. First and foremost, Matt and Sarah Craig from Open Gate Farmstead. They are the power couple in Ausable, putting together some really great farm-to-table options for this community, and I love their eggs. Let them know that you're interested in some eggs. You heard about it from the Gumption podcast, and you are looking for your first $1 off. Also, Kavanaugh Realty. Galen Trombley, Joey Trombley, those guys are awesome. They're doing great stuff in the real estate market in the northern New York area. If you have any questions about real estate, check him out. Galen Trombley on social media. He's putting out a lot of good content for free that people are finding very valuable in terms of real estate, selling or buying a home. And check him out. #Local Matters. Ladies and gentlemen, that's episode 10 with Sandra Geddes. Thank you so much for tuning in this far. I hope you've enjoyed it. Stay tuned for more. Don't forget, subscribe, like us on Facebook, Instagram, other social media. We're on Twitter. Stories of Gumption. Check us out. Peace.